Call the meeting order, 4:32. Pledge of Allegiance. Roll call. You want to start us out, Bob?
Bacon present.
Keyquan present.
Milky present.
Coin present.
Sweet present.
Seeing a quorum present. We'll move on to item number 4, approval of tonight's agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Got motion by Coin, support by Sweet.
Could I have like 2 minutes just for a trustee board report on the agenda somewhere, or if you want to squeeze
Yeah.
me in anywhere?
Maybe just
Under comment, director comment, or
pending business at
That's
the
fine.
last.
Yeah.
And this agenda should be February 20th. I see, I don't know what you guys is. Mine says January 16th still. You got a good one? Maybe you better borrow it as a change. Hold on. Looking at a defective.
Oh.
Yeah, do you have another one? I'm still looking at an old agenda.
We can put that right here. It's helpful.
Here.
I can share.
Oh, yeah. This one says, yeah, I printed off January 16th.
That's
But
that's
I
the only
just
one
got-
I was sent.
I just got one today from her, so
Oh,
I printed off, yeah. It
Okay.
says,
what does yours say?
20th.
yeah, I printed this off. You just gave me one, so I'm good. But I had this one.
Okay, with that correction and that date add, got a motion on the table by Coin, supported by Sweet, to approve tonight's agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Agenda's approved. Let's go on to item 5, approval of meeting minutes. Other December 19th.
move to approve the meeting minutes from December 19th, 2023 regular meeting and January 16th, 2024 regular meeting.
Second.
Motion by Sweet, support by Coin. So what do we have for January 16th?
Just to
Just
call
says
it to order.
that we,
Adjourned it.
okay.
There's no quorum.
okay. All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the same. Hearing no opposition, motion's approved. Let's go down to item 6. Presentation, item A, Mr. Ed DeGroat, Petro Plaza property.
Good afternoon. It's my first board meeting, so I don't know if you've read this material, or do you need me to read it again? Okay, so I won't bother
You
you
can
with that.
introduce yourself and your
Yeah.
intention and for our record. And
Ed DeGroat Jr., I'm one of the owners at 2284 Enterprise Drive, the Petro Plaza office complex, as we refer to it. Meeting with Mr. Nanny and Mr. Zelenet, if I pronounced that right. You suggested this might be an avenue for me to try and move this property if the board would have any interest in purchasing it. In my letter, I have a price in here, but that's just to get the ball rolling, if this is even an option. If it's not, I guess we don't need to go any further, but if it is, I'd like to explore it with you, and if you have any questions, try and answer them.
why don't you just kind of walk down to your scenario? I mean, this is kind of new to me anyway. I don't know if the rest of you guys heard about it.
So, we purchased property back in '86. This property was office space when we purchased it. We've been using it, ever since. We've had it for a long time. We tried to sell it this past year. We had a purchase agreement and everything was going well. And then the buyer said they were in talks with the township officials and said that their intended use would not be allowed because it wasn't industrial based, it was general office space. So under the assumption that that was allowed, but apparently it's not, so. Again, meeting with Mr. Nandy, going through the possible uses of this property. It's pretty clear that none of them are gonna work the way the building's set up. And I'm basically left with the property I can't lease or sell in my mind. So I'm at the point where I either gotta walk away and just let it go to property tax foreclosure, or as a last resort, if the board has any interest in purchasing that. I don't know if you have any, there's any state or county grants that you guys are allowed to access for redeveloping this. But I certainly don't have that ability myself. By redeveloping, I'm assuming it would have to be knocked down and sold as a vacant land. So that's where I'm at.
Let me see that letter out of you.
Rodney, has the township explored all, this seems just like common sense isn't in play. These buildings have been on that site since 1981. I drove through there today. It looks like the landlord has kept the buildings up. They're nice office buildings. The parking lot's in good shape. In my opinion, it should have never gotten to this point. Whether we do something to accommodate office use on this small parcel, because as Mr. DeGroat said, even if we purchased it, which I'm not in favor of, because it shouldn't have gotten to this point. But if we purchase it, we can't use it for anything. We'd have to tear down buildings, and now you've got a 2.5 or just under 3 acre lot that's worth $40,000 maybe, and we spent $1 million plus demolition and everything else. I just think common sense here. At the end of the day, either the township needs to go back and talk to Mr. DeGroat and get something worked out where these buildings that have been kept up for the last 43 years that look very nice, and see if there's a common solution where either he can continue to lease it as he has for the last 38 years or 35 years, or sell it for fair market value. But for a government entity to purchase that, I don't know. It feels like we're gonna have to bail out either the township or this looked to me like a lawsuit waiting to happen that the township would not be in a good position. So that's my thoughts.
The outright purchase, I'm kind of with you, but then it is in the Economic Development Authority, and it is our park. So it's kind of in our wheelhouse to try to do something. You know what I mean? And look at a master plan, long-term, or what.
So I can give a little bit more background, maybe to answer some of the questions that sound like.
Sure.
If you like. So the property was developed basically. It was known in 1981. The office park opened. So it was developed under a 1971 zoning ordinance, the original zoning ordinance of the township. Enterprise Business Park, Industrial Park was developed in the late 70s, so this timing makes sense that this site would open in 1981. It was developed under a 71 ordinance, which allowed office as a principal use in the industrial district. It's the only ordinance the township has had that allowed it. The township was probably in the process, while this site was being developed, of adopting a new zoning ordinance, 1981 ordinance, that eliminated that. It actually removed that office as a principal use in the industrial district. It's allowed, absolutely allowed office, but only as what's the ordinance calls an accessory use, which basically means that the offices have to be connected to an industrial operation, either on the same site or, as we noted in our memo, essentially within the industrial park. In fact, so if something was on a nearby site, let's say Bandit needed some additional office space, they're across the street, they could occupy office here as an accessory use here. We have a few other businesses in the park that could do similar things if they chose to. But as I said, the ordinance, the 81 ordinance only allowed it as an accessory use, secondary to an industrial operation. The 1991 ordinance was the same, and our 2020 ordinance was the same. So essentially, since this property opened, the offices have been what the ordinance would call legal non-conforming use, which means they were lawfully established at the time, but they're no longer lawful under the current ordinance. And under zoning, under state law for zoning, they're protected. Whatever that lawful non-conforming use is protected. The challenge we have here is only one building is or as currently or as recently been used as general offices. The other four have been occupied by the tribal college, and that for many years. Now, I don't know how the tribal college got there. I don't know the history of that, but I know they've been there for many years. Institution of higher learning has never been a legal use in our industrial district, but this land is part of the Isabella Indian Reservation, and the tribe has very significant protections as a sovereign nation as to how they use land that they occupy. Certainly there's never any question that what they were doing was legal on that site. So for those four buildings, the legal non-conforming use is not office, it's institution of higher education, as our zoning ordinance views it. So that's the challenge we have here.
Has the tribal college been there for 30 years?
I don't know. I haven't done the research to find out how
They
far.
haven't.
Probably
But-
15, 20.
But
Yeah,
you have to understand that when they occupied it, that became the legal non-conforming use of that property. So we did meet Mr. DeGroat, as he said, and we offered several ideas. One is obviously the property can be used as the zoning district allows, and there are a number of things could potentially be in there. Beyond that, there's the legal non-conforming uses, the office in the one building, higher education in the other four. And then we did talk about the idea of either seeking a rezoning. He has the option as the owner to apply for rezoning of the land to a district that allows offices. That would not be consistent with our master plan. It would not really be consistent with the character of the industrial park, but it's possible. Anybody can apply. And certainly could make a case for anything. The other thing we said was you could also apply, and this is something that certainly is available, anybody can apply to amend the zoning ordinance. So, and we've had cases specifically related to solar energy where we've had private individuals who have sought a change in our zoning ordinance to in this case, to allow additional solar. Additionally, to add solar energy facilities to our ordinance, and the second one to amend that section to allow some additional height. Both of those were private actions that initiated those. So somebody could apply to amend our zoning ordinance to allow office as a principal use in the industrial district.
Or
As part of that
especially,
conversation, I did discuss with Mr. Grote that we do have, that this property is in our East EDA district. It's part of our industrial park. And our EDA board governs that East EDA district, and you are empowered to consider purchasing property for economic development purposes. And so I suggested he certainly could come and make a presentation to you, and sort of put the idea on the table, essentially. What you do with it, as I said, is completely up to you, but purchasing the property and redeveloping it, whatever we do with it, is certainly within the scope of our development plan for the East EDA district. We do not have a lot of industrial land. This is, as you said, just under 3 acres. It's an interesting site. It certainly could have something, fairly substantial warehouse, or kind of what we call a high bay building, that could be used for warehousing, distribution center, light manufacturing, something like that. You put a fairly substantial building on the property if these office buildings were cleared from it. The other thing I'll note is that the buildings themselves, as was noted, are over 40 years old. They're low height, which means that you don't have a lot of ability to modernize the HVAC systems, and they're 40 years old, meaning all those systems are getting older, and they tend to be in smaller spaces. They're not set up for what people expect today for a modern office space. We also have the challenge that the office environment, economic environment, has changed radically since COVID. There's just simply not a demand in the same way there
But
was.
he had a purchase
I'll address
agreement.
that. I know. The folks that came into the township that were looking at this property are the folks that run the Listening Ear nonprofit group. And what they were looking to do was to consolidate all of their activities into one site. They really wanted about 30,000 square foot office building. But this site has about 26,000 square feet of office space between the 5 buildings. It sort of fit within the range. And for them, they did not want to build, they wanted an existing building. So although it was not precisely what they were looking for, it was in the realm of it. The challenge is that only a portion of what they were proposing to do actually could even fit within the character of an office use. They wanted to do a lot more than what the office activity would be defined as, including potentially even emergency housing, for example. But there were a number of other things that were not consistent even with an office use. So even for them, they would have had to rezone the property to be able to occupy it. So we sat down with them, and we simply walked through that with them, and explained what the ordinance allows, explained what was possible, talked about how they could pursue a rezoning if they chose, and how they could make a presentation like this to our planning commission if they'd like to just float the idea. There's no cost to do that. Ultimately, they apparently stepped back. We didn't hear from them again. But as I said, that was not an office use. Part of it was, but only a portion of what they were proposing fit within that category. So the opportunity here really is in the idea of repositioning this property as an industrial property, and perhaps taking down buildings that are really, at this point, 40-some years old, functionally obsolete. They could be rehabbed, but no matter what, they're still going to be low height, relatively small office buildings, designed for a 1980s market, really designed for a 1970s market, frankly, and not really consistent with what people are looking for today in an office environment. So I'm certainly not saying that the EDA board is going to make a profit from buying this property if you did, no matter what the price might be. But there is an opportunity here to change what's going on that site and perhaps position it for something much better. So that's why it's before you. It's not something that anybody. I don't think even Mr. DeGroat was expecting an answer tonight. But we want to bring it to you and invite you to consider it. If it's something that you're interested in talking about further, we would then put it on the agenda for a discussion action item at your next meeting, and kind of go from there. So initially, it's really just looking at kind of in general, is this something that you might be interested in pursuing? Obviously, if it came down to the point of negotiation, then we would be looking at probably deal with something like getting an appraisal, or bringing the attorney in and having a closed session to talk about specific property. But there is an opportunity here, potentially, and it certainly benefits Mr. DeGroat, but it also benefits potentially the industrial park and the East DDA district as well.
So in
I'm sorry, you were done, right? So full disclosure, I called Mr. Nanny this afternoon and had a long conversation regarding this too, but, two questions I didn't think about in our conversation earlier, because we talked about options for, Mr. DeGroat. And one is trying to get the, planning commission to look at, modifying uses in industrial zones, right? Whether or not the planning commission would do that, I have no idea. But is another option to amend it as a special use that would allow, rather than just a flat-out use?
Yeah.
That's an option too? And
It
then,
it certainly is, yeah.
and then, I don't know why I didn't think of this in our conversation either, but is this something that a variance could be applied for as well?
Yeah. Unfortunately not. The township doesn't have the authority to grant use variances.
I don't,
One thing to keep in mind, just talking, I apologize, about office in the industrial district. As I said, we don't have a lot of industrial land. We are significantly overzoned on commercial land in the 3 business districts we have. There is, and the offices are allowed in any of the commercial, there's actually 4 districts that offices are allowed in by right, to do it right now. We have an office district, which is primarily the Health Parkway property, where there's some medical offices. But then we have 3 business districts, and all 3 of them, offices are allowed permitted use, just site plan approval to build it, and you're all set. So we already have plenty of land available where offices can be. We have very little land available where industrial activities can be. And so that's the reluctance, I think, that will come up for the planning commission in looking at either changing the zoning classification to office district or changing the ordinance to allow offices, whether it's a permitted or a special use. It's certainly possible, it can be proposed, but I think that's where there would be a reluctance, since we have very limited land available.
I know spot zoning is kind of a nasty word, but this is basically what this is. It will be surrounded by industrial, but I think that's the way to go, really, is to get it rezoned. I mean, it's been grandfathered as that usage for so long. I think you gotta try that. I'm really not all that interested in us interfering with the local real estate market. I mean, unless something's been on the market for a long, I'm a bit of a libertarian in terms of I don't think government should be jumping in and skewing prices up or down. I'm not, obviously I sit on a board that develops, can't be too libertarian, but in this particular case, I don't really like us getting involved in something unless it's been on the market for a while.
Well, it has been on the market for a
Well,
while.
how long? You had one buyer.
9 months.
Yeah, see, that's not long in my.
Maybe we can get it zoned so it's just office space?
I know that
That's what it is.
spot zoning is unpopular, it's a bad term these days. Being surrounded by industrial, that's what it would be, but in this case with a grandfathered kind of usage, I think that's the way to go.
I
I'd
would
rather see that
suspect,
happen than us buy it.
yeah, I suspect that that's going to fail, I will tell you. And it's part because it's a bad idea from a zoning perspective, but also simply the planning commission, I think will not look at it favorably. We certainly can.
Well, I can see, why you don't look at it favorably,
Yeah,
but I can see why also you might go that is the way to go.
But it's been office space.
Well, the issue is, from a zoning perspective, is exactly what was mentioned. Spot zoning is a legal term. It's not defined in the state zoning act. It's actually defined by the courts. That basically looks at in a place in a zoning district surrounded by a different zoning district, kind of why is this different, kind of a thing. Well, if this is all an industrial park, why is this office and the rest something else? I think if there was any change, it would probably be to amend the ordinance to go back to the 1971 version and just make office a permitted use. The challenge is, as I said, we have very limited industrial land. And right now what we have are functionally obsolete 40-year-old office buildings on a piece of property that could be something else. The challenge is, no matter who buys it, even if office were allowed, there's still 40-year-old office buildings that really are not designed to be updated to be modern standards.
That's not up to us.
That's.
Well, but it is actually. This is exactly why we
We're not
have
here to
these
make
DDA
money or
districts.
lose.
That's not up to us to decide if those buildings aren't feasible to.
It is for the
We're
market to
not
decide.
developers. We're not That's not up to us to decide if, oh, the HVAC is, that's up to the landlord and the tenants and the prospective buyer. But if we could do a special use permit as the buildings sit and until they tear them down or whatever, then it reverts back or whatever. But I just think we need to help the landlord here to.
A special use
I-
permit runs with the land.
Yeah.
There's no
It's
reverting.
perpetual.
Yeah, it's perpetual.
But we got to do something. There are 5 office buildings that have been there since 1981. It doesn't matter what was in those buildings. There are 5 office buildings that have been there since 1981.
I-
And
And I sympathize with that 100%, but I also hear Mr. Nanny, and I agree with your comments that the planning commission, the master plan, has been looking to expand industrial. And that's no fault of Mr. DeGroat here. And so they might, out of sympathy, decide to do something, because certainly tugging at my heart for you a little bit here. But I can see where they might look at the bigger picture. And this is no fault of Mr. DeGroat. But I agree, Jeff. It
It just seems. And we step in and we purchase for $1 million, and then you've got another couple $100,000 in demolition because there's probably asbestos and everything else. And literally, we have a vacant lot that's prime industrial. That the rest of that industrial park is basically storage facilities. That it literally is worth 40 to, say at the high, 100,000. So we're out over $1 million, and if we're willing to do that, then we have more money than brains.
So the rest of the industrial park is not storage facilities.
Well,
They've-
right across
It's
the
actually-
street,
We've
it's
got bandit
acres
coming in.
and
We've got
acres
bandit
of
coming
yellow
in.
pipe.
Change the
I mean,
dynamics.
It is, there are a few acres next door to this site, in fact, that are yellow pipe, that's Helios Rising Pipeline Company, that has an office in another building in the industrial park. The vast majority, frankly, is manufacturing or high technology. That's what Michael Engineering is really high technology manufacturing activities and research.
what's the CFX building zone? What does that fall under? That falls under.
It's zoned industrial, it's also a legal non-conforming use. So this is where, as I said, this is really one of the reasons why the East DDA district exists, is to address situations potentially like this. It's not something the EDA board has done much of. We've done a little bit. We purchased property up in the corner at Enterprise and Pickard. We purchased one residential lot where we had a serious debilitated building there. But this is one of the reasons why we have DDAs and why the East DDA district exists, is to address things like functionally obsolete buildings, address things like blight, and what we do in terms of the corridors is wonderful, and it has an impact. I hear comments all the time about the Pickard Road corridor, and people, as we've said in this meeting, what happens when you drive out of the township and into the city and how that changes. So that's very important, but this other element of addressing things like functional obsolete buildings and blight is also important. This property has been maintained. I'm not saying this is blighted in any way. It's been taken care of, and it is in decent shape. But these buildings are functional obsolete because of how they were designed. They're not. They really can't be made to modern office standards, simply because they're small, low-rise buildings, and so there is only so much that can happen with them. But there is, through this body, through the economic development opportunity there might be here, there might be something else that can happen that can create a new dynamic in that space. As I said, the township's not going to make money from this. I would if we were looking at this, the first thing I would do is say we would want to have an appraisal done to find out really what the property's worth. I appreciate Mr. Grove's comments and his reference to the SEV. I have no idea where that SEV came from. I have no idea how recently that's been looked at. But my thought would be is to have an appraisal, because frankly, as I said, market conditions have changed. And so look at it, see what an appraisal says that property's worth. And then go from there to decide if it's something worth pursuing. But from a perspective of, economic development perspective, of converting what is right now functional obsolete space, it could be rented, sure, people can come in there. And some may not, if the property could be used for offices. But it's still, these are not spaces that are attractive even for office use, simply because they're older and they're not able to be modernized in the way people want to have their offices be like today. There's had the opportunity late last year to tour another building. It's technically in the industrial park. It's over by the Home Depot though, and it's actually zoned commercial at that area right there by Home Depot. And it's a building, sort of a mix. There's some garages there that are used by a business, but there's an office building that's occupied by a company that deals with corporate taxes, and they do business nationwide from our community. And that building, high ceilings, open airy spaces, open plan offices, very beautiful office space inside. It was renovated. It was originally a fairly plain building apparently, but nonetheless, because of the high ceilings in the space, both on the first floor and the second floor, they were able to create something that's very comfortable, as I said, for this tax business, where they're attracting people from around the world to work there. That's the kind of space that, sure, his office would be great to have. These buildings just simply cannot be that because of their design. They're limited in what's possible. So this body can potentially, if you choose, change that dynamic and perhaps put this property and the area around it on a different path. Absolutely, it would be an investment. Absolutely, there'd be a cost. But I think from my perspective, it is worth exploring it. What you decide in the end, after exploring it, certainly, absolutely your decision. But I think it's worth exploring it even beyond this conversation today. This is a site that we can have an impact on.
I told Mr. Nanny today, I said, my initial gut, when I looked at that $1 million price tag, was I don't see how the township recoups that, even with getting industrial. But in the same light, I don't feel like I had enough. And I said, this is something I wouldn't want to close the door on without having additional information. My gut says this might not be a great path, but I'm open to at least exploring it. I'm not saying that I would end up voting for it, because it'd have to have the cost benefit for the township as a whole would have to be pretty big. Can I ask you a question? You
Sure.
don't have to answer it if you don't feel comfortable. If something were to come to pass where we made an arrangement like it's being proposed, do you feel like you would be whole?
Yeah. Well, it depends on price, right?
Understood. I
Yeah.
understood. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, if it was fair,
I mean,
what the township
Look, I'm
thought
not,
was
you know,
fair
I
and
know
you thought was
someone
fair?
brought up lawsuit. I'm not looking for that. That would be it would be very extreme that I would go that far. But on the other hand, I just had $1 million purchase agreement ripped out from underneath me. It's not easy to take.
Yeah, I get that.
And that was they were just gonna use it for
The,
office
the
space,
listing
or-
here.
That was
that-
the listing area.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
have some temporary housing maybe,
Well, it was a variety.
as needed. I think that you should be able to do that. I think it should be zoned and you should be able to use that, you know. I don't think everybody needs a high-end office. Listening Ear is not they were in a car dealership downtown for, you know, it was just a hole. I mean, they did their thing, and if they wanted to come and do something out there, I think it would be I think we should be able to change it to make it fit. And I don't like the idea of spot, but those are nice, they're nice buildings, but they're not real high, but I feel for, that I think it should be, we should accommodate it. And it's a kind of an asset there, but
Talk to us after the planning commission gives you a no.
Well, I think-
Go that route first,
Well,
please.
I had similar thoughts where,
Let's explore other options before, this is maybe a last resort. But certainly exhaust other options like rezoning or else changing the ordinance so that more uses are allowed
Well, one thing
before
keep-
I'm interested in purchasing the property, yeah.
One thing to keep in mind with either rezoning or changing the ordinance is that's a months-long process.
Yeah.
If I'm 3 or 4 months, at least, to make the application, we have to schedule a hearing. There's planning commission discussion on it. They will eventually make a recommendation. They don't have to do it right away, and,
Well, I don't foresee us being in a hurry on this.
well,
so.
I understand that, but what I'm saying to you is that's something where by summer, Mr. DeGroat may have an answer if he were to apply for that action. The plan commission is in the process of updating the master plan, which is kind of a long range, what do we want our community to be like down 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the road. I would not expect that the plan for the enterprise industrial park to change. So this is basically plan for industrial.
Right.
So I don't think that really gets us anywhere. And any rezoning would have to essentially argue against the.
It's gonna go against the master plan, that's for certain.
Right.
But if the master plan goes against what the market will bear, then the master plan is wrong.
Well, okay. I'm not.
If you can't find a buyer for a piece of
How
property.
many offers there have been on the property? I'm only cognizant of the one from listening here, which unfortunately was not even consistent with an office use entirely, partially, but not entirely. So even that would have had to rezone as well, probably like a planned unit development type zoning, which said people can propose, but they have to basically show how it works. And how it's a benefit to the community. My suggestion to you is that we explore this, even if, while there may be efforts on the planning commission side, maybe a presentation made to them, my suggestion is that we explore this concurrently, not wait until the planning commission's, or the board of trustees, frankly, who has the final answer over the zoning, takes any action.
Right.
I will also note that any application Mr. DeGroat makes has a cost associated with it. Public hearings and such have to be covered cost-wise, and so it's an investment on his part to even make that application. It's fairly high yield decline. So it seems like, to me, it seems like this is worth exploring further. Again, it's up to you ultimately. My thought would be is to have this on our next agenda. We could certainly look at bringing additional information to you. I could certainly provide you with more background. Just take a look at what we do with it.
is listening here want all of the buildings?
They
Yes.
were purchasing the property.
Yes. I mean, I just think that you gotta we're kind of sticking our nose up and saying, well, we gotta have it this way, when somebody could use it and help the community.
Keep in mind, listening here was actually given the same information that we gave to Mr. DeGroat, and it included about the planned unit development option, because that's basically what we said. We said, that's the way to get all the things you're looking for, is to go that route, and put it all on the table, essentially the concept plan. This is how we're gonna use the property, they have a big list. And here we go, here's put on the table, this is what we want to do. They chose not to pursue it. So that to me has an element to it as well, that they chose not to take that step to actually propose to use the property in the way that they would
Well,
like.
because we, Union Township, wasn't really working with them, I think,
That's
wasn't it?
not true. No, we
I
absolutely.
mean, you have your ways, a certain rule, but we could change that to make it fit to them.
Well, but that's actually what the plan, maybe just kind of give you the background. Plan unit development is a tool that was added to zoning sometime in the late 50s, early 60s. And it basically, it's a very awkward term, first of all, planned unit development, PUD for short. But the idea is that it was kind of a relief valve. It was a way for a developer to propose a project that might not fit within the strict box of various zoning districts, but nonetheless could be a positive benefit to the community. And it's often used to create mixed-use neighborhoods, you know, what sometimes we call neo-traditional development, where you have commercial and office and houses all together. It's also used to maybe have a more dense development than the zoning allows, in exchange for having, providing some parks or improving some roads or whatever that might be, sort of a trade-off. So in our case, our PUD ordinance, which was basically added to the ordinance in 2020, we actually amended it in 2021 to even make it a little bit more flexible than the 2020 ordinance was. It's designed to be flexible. Basically, somebody can propose something, let's say listening to your folks, and they can propose, here's all the activities we would like to do. We know the zoning ordinance doesn't allow these certain things, so we're proposing these as what the ordinance calls a limited deviation. And here's why doing this is actually going to result in a better project than if we went straight zoning. And so what happens is you combine a rezoning of the land to a PUD zoning district with a concept plan, that if that concept plan is approved, that becomes the zoning of the property. So that whatever they develop then has to follow those rules that are on that concept plan. So we have a means to
Accommodate them.
to see and hear from people that may not fit in the tight boxes of zoning. We have one PUD project that's been approved, and that's right around the corner on Broadway, and it's an assisted living facility they call Prestige Center. It's right near Venture Way and Broadway. It's an old 80s, I think, or 70s building, a couple buildings. They want to modernize it. They want to greatly expand operations. And the challenge there is that property on Broadway is own business, which allowed a very narrow range of what they wanted to do in terms of housing. And so they came in with a planned unit development, and they did get approval of that planned unit development. There were some changes along the way. There was some give and take. We didn't have the sewer capacity for everything they wanted to do, so some parts of that project had to be scaled down. But the property's on PUD, and they have a plan. I understand that this spring they're going to be starting work on that. So that's what the PUD is for. We absolutely work with people. We have tools to do that. But planned unit development, there are a number of steps involved to get that. It is a rezoning, so there's hearings. We have the county planning commission, which gets involved on any rezoning action. They get the chance to review it for 30 days. So it takes time. Both the planning commission and the board of trustees have multiple meetings on it in order to go through the process. So in this case, as I said, listening here could have pursued it. They chose not to. And so I think that's an element to keep in mind. At this point, really, they are off the table because they chose not to pursue the option that was available to them. And so the question is, is there a market? I mean, I suppose anybody can do a market analysis of office, but right now what we have is we're still having the effects of COVID, where the office market is not anything what it once was.
Right.
People are working from home, and companies don't need as much office space as they used to. And this is the key, when they want office space, they want office space where their employees want to be. Remember I mentioned that company around the corner, high ceilings, open, airy, light, common spaces, variety of different ways to work, almost like an office hotel.
Some people want low rent.
Some people want low rent.
It's a
We do have some.
cash for clunkers was a great thing, but I had unintended consequences is that the guy could not buy the $8,000 truck because they were all gone. The market was skewered because government interfered in the marketplace, which benefits some people and hurts other people.
We do have, we have office space.
Yeah, we do have office
We have
space.
low rent office space between the township and the city.
Sure.
You know, there are spaces available. And so this could be one if zoning was correct.
It seems like we're missing the mark that there was an accepted purchase agreement for $1 million when we say, well, this isn't gonna work for this, and this is just outdated and COVID and this and that. There was a purchase agreement for $1 million. I'm done talking about it for the night. Let's talk about it next month after we get some more information, but we're missing that point, that there was $1 million purchase agreement on this site. So you can say everything you want about COVID and office space and this and that, that's not there. The market, free enterprise dictated the price of that property, and it was $1 million.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think everybody's brought up quite a number of good points, and this is a lot. This is kind of, I'm seeing not just the purchase, I think, is out there, but either way, just by virtue of this property's within our East EDA boundaries and within our park, we're going to be visiting this again. So, I mean, all this discussion is good. I'm a little disappointed we missed this situation when we were doing the mass strategic planning a few years ago, because we kind of knew this was going to happen, I guess. Because I'm just like,
The property was occupied, and it has been occupied.
well, yeah, I know, but it's when it was going to, when it could change. But I think we should put this on the agenda. We kind of have a marginal turnout tonight, and keep it on for our next meeting, and just chew on this and what the situation. I mean, not even through acquisition, we're still going to be dealing with it. You know, it's like, so we beat this one pretty good. You guys ready to move on?
One comment. I'd just like to thank Mr. DeGroat for
Yes,
being
thank
here
you.
and
Yeah,
coming.
Thank you for hearing me out. I didn't say much, but appreciate your time.
Yes, thank you.
I'll move on.
Thank you.
Next agenda item, the public comment. Anybody online?
We have, Rick Barrs online that I believe he's gonna speak during public comment. I'm asking. Rick, can you hear us? Looks like he's unmuted, but.
I just noticed Jennifer's here too, isn't she?
She's here for the sidewalk.
Yeah.
Anything?
He went for the walk on the beach for a moment.
Hearing no comments. I don't know if it's technical or what we got going on here, but if you guys can hear us, just pipe up online. So meantime, why don't we continue on to reports? Item 8, accounts payable, December and January.
Well, good afternoon, everyone.
Afternoon.
Let's start out with the East DDA accounts payable, the 248 fund. We have a payment to Consumers Energy for $1,273.65, and a payment to 21st Century Media, which is the Morning Sun, advertising in the Morning Sun, for $283.90, and that was an add to bidders for landscaping improvements. And then we have a payment to Be Green Lawn Services for $1,000. This is for weed and feed along the Pickard corridor. One month, I want to say October maybe, and then fertilizer on another day, a month later. So 2 payments for $500, totaling $1,000. And then we have a payment to Johnny's Lawn Care for sidewalk snow plowing in January of 2024. That's for $4,857.61. And a payment to MMI for maintenance around the park benches and the trash receptacles along Pickard. That's for $373 for January of 2024. And we also have a payment to Middle Michigan Development Corp. This is a $2,500 client fee for 2024, for the year 2024. So our accounts payable total for the East DDA this month is $10,288.16. Any questions? Moving on to the West DDA, accounts payable. We have 2 payments this month, one to Johnny's Lawn Care for sidewalk snow plowing along the West DDA. And that's for $3,358.20. And then we also have a payment going to Middle Michigan Development Corp. From the West DDA for $2,500, and that's for the client fee for 2024. So the West DDA accounts payable totals $5,858.20. Are there any questions on anything there?
Questions, comments, motion?
Move to approve the expenses as stated for the East and West DDA.
Support.
Got a motion by Sweet, supported by Milky. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the same. And the check registers are approved. Thank you.
Okay, and then moving on to the financial reports, we'll review the East DDA first. We're just starting out the new year, new fiscal year 2024. This is for the period ending January 31st. We have revenues for the month. Interest earned was $7,106. Those are the total revenues for the month. And then we have in the expenditure area, we have $13,788 posted there for the East DDA. That all comes from the accounts payable that you just approved tonight. And then moving on to the balance sheet for the East DDA, you have just over $2 million in assets and fund balance estimate there, just over $2 million. And then moving on to the West DDA, same thing. This is for the period ending January 31st, 2024. In the revenue area, you have just under $5,000. That's for interest earned in January. And then in the expenditure area, there's $5,858 posted for expenditures. That's for snow plowing and the other items that you approved in your accounts payable this evening. And for the West DDA, for total assets, cash and fund balance, you just have about a little over 1.2 million. Are there any questions on the financials for the East and West DDA for January?
Questions, comments? Hearing no questions, we'll let the record know financials were presented, filed.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank
Yep,
you.
thanks. And also in your packet on item 8C, you'll see the board matrix with the board expiration dates for your review.
Chair, I just have a quick question.
Yep.
If I excuse myself, is there still a quorum?
Nope. Yeah, what time you were trying to get out of here?
15 minutes ago.
Oh,
Sorry.
which one of these can we like
If we
rock
can-
through?
If we can do at least A and B, I think the other two can wait till your March meeting. I'd like to, if we could do the sidewalk, that would be very helpful.
Should go quick.
Has everybody looked at those?
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, I recommend you guys do them.
Yeah, I would be in agreement.
Agreed.
I just did have one comment though about that. I would have liked to have seen like OHM or Lampum or BB or submit a proposal for the sidewalks next time. Or I can see keeping Gordy Frazier for the plants, for the collection system, distribution system. But I don't know why we keep them on to do sidewalks. You know, that's
And
just
the only
my
question
comment.
The only question I had is, they've already done work, correct?
They've already done some preliminary work, but also they are our township engineering firm. They do work in a number of ways. They take care of other sidewalks that our general fund pays for. But even beyond that, they're working on a number of engineering-related projects for the township. They know the community. Yes, absolutely, we can go out for bid for engineering services if there's a desire. But frankly, when you have a good engineer that knows the community and does top-notch work, we stick with them. We had row engineering, and we did stick with them, I think, far longer than we should have, and they did not do top-notch work. They, in fact,
Correct, yeah.
were very costly to the township. And Gordy Frazier has a track record of, first of all, being providing excellent value for the cost, but also for doing excellent work in terms of providing the benefit to the township for what they charge. So I recognize there are other firms that can do it. I've worked with OHM. I've worked with some of the other, Stantec and some of the other firms are out there in various communities over the years when I was in the consulting world. And there are good engineers at all these firms. But as I said, we have the track record with Gordy Frazier. We know that they.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to slow the project down. I just want to recommend, would recommend you guys approve those. And maybe if you approved all of them, let's do a motion and get the first one done.
I move to approve the agreement with Gordy Frazier Inc. in the amount not to exceed $48,250 to provide civil engineering and construction administration services for completion of approximately 1,950 linear feet of new sidewalk construction along the east side of Bud Street, north from East Pickard Road, M20, to connect to Jamison Park, and along the east side of South Isabella Road from East K Street south to East Broadway, and to authorize the township manager to sign the agreement.
Support.
Got a motion by Sweet, support by Bacon for that requested EDA board action. Hearing no questions or comments, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the same. And that request is approved.
All right, I also move to approve the agreement with Gordy Frazier Incorporated in the amount not to exceed $22,000 to provide civil engineering and construction administration services for new sidewalk construction along the west side of Bradley Street, north from East Remus Road, M20, approximately 770 feet to the south driveway of Mount Pleasant Middle School, and to authorize the township manager to sign the agreement.
Got a motion by Sweet, support by Coin. Hearing no more comments or questions.
One question? Well, I'll be quick, Jeff, I promise. So we had an issue with the sidewalks on Remus along where Merchandise Outlet is, just because of the landscape that was there, essentially, right?
Some drainage that was there. Yeah.
Yes, so a lot of that is parking lot as you go from Remus towards the middle school for Merchandise Outlet.
There is actually space there within the right-of-way. We will not have an issue with it there. We'll have to cross driveways, but the sidewalk would be in the space, generally within the right-of-way there.
Okay, so
Through
that's
the space. So
not
it's not-
anticipating
we are-
an issue there.
We are not
Okay.
anticipating impacting.
Awesome, thank
the
you,
parking lot.
thank you, Chair.
Hearing no more questions, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the same. And the request is approved. Thank you.
If I may, Chair, I'd like to move that we table items, new business 9C and 9D until our next meeting.
I would second that.
Motion by Milky, support by Sweet. Shoot for that amendment. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the same. Motion's approved.
I appreciate that, guys. I just made a commitment to my kids to be at their stuff.
Before you go, if I
Yep,
could.
I'm not going yet.
That's one item, we don't have any pending business, but I do have one quick comment, 30 seconds on the director comments. And that is, I would just ask you to be aware of the Care Store drive that we have going on out here. Our staff is their second year of taking donations for the Care Store at the Strickler Center. This is personal care products, toilet paper, toothpaste, feminine products. There's a list there. There's also, it's posted up on the website. That Care Store drive is going on through the end of the month. If you would like to contribute, I invite you to do that. Just drop things off right here in the front lobby. But we're trying to give them another nice big donation. So that's my plug for that. And with that, I appreciate your time.
One more.
Pending business, right? I had-
Pending. Oh,
we put that on. Really quick, we'll have our annual township board meeting where all the boards kind of get together. I believe it's April 10th. And in the past, typically that has been really past-driven, meaning looking back at what was done by each board. It's a presentation to, the main purpose of that is for communication to other boards so everybody kind of hears what everybody else is doing, right? And the Board of Trustees' hope with this is that it becomes not just a report on what happened in the prior year, but where you'd like to see the township go. So one of the things the township has done this past fall is we did a citizen survey. You probably all got some of them. We'll be getting those results before too long, so this board can benefit from seeing that as well. But I think it's really important, especially because the planning commission's going through the master plan, that we all, as just residents of Union Township, have the opportunity to provide feedback on where you'd like to see the township go, what we do well, what we don't do well, right? Maybe some of the conversation we had tonight. So I think the Board of Trustees was hoping that we could use it as not just a backward looking, still do that report,
yep.
but an opportunity for all of us to talk about where we'd like to take the township. Does that make sense?
Here. That's the joint board meeting you're
Yes.
talking about?
Yep.
Where's that gonna be held this year?
Jameson?
Jameson?
I believe, yeah,
Jam-
James.
Jameson.
Okay.
And
What's
April
that?
17th,
April 7th.
Oh, April 17th?
17th,
Thanks for the
Jameson,
correction.
Okay.
Um,
6 p.m.
And I can't promise this yet. We're trying to get some type of food there. We'll see what happens with that. So, in any event,
Okay.
try not to hold up Jeff too much.
You're fine. I
Thanks.
appreciate you guys.
Yep, we didn't have everything on
Accommodating.
director comments.
No, just the Care Store.
Okay, and so I guess we can adjourn the meeting, 5:36, and we'll see everybody Tuesday, March 19th. Thanks.
Thank you, guys.